Hello there, welcome to People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. On June 6, 2018, the President Muhammadu Buhari-led federal government announced June 12 as Nigeria's Democracy Day, a departure from the previously recognized but now only referred to as Handover Day, that is May 29th. Democracy Day marks the transition from military rule to civilian administration on May 29, 1999. What we refer to today as the Fourth Republic began on that day when an elected government began the longest continuous rule of 22 years since Nigeria's independence from its colonial masters in 1960. With the change of Democracy Day from May 29 to June 12, the Buhari administration made deliberate efforts to tap into the existing June 12 celebration that commemorates what is touted as the most credible election in Nigeria's history, which held on June 12, 1993, and was adjudged to have been won by Chief MKO Abiola of the now defunct Social Democratic Party, SDP. Our task on the program today is to look back at Nigeria's democratic journey. How well has the nation fared after 16 years of the People's Democratic Party and 6 years of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and of course, 4 presidents in power. Is Nigeria in the right place? Are Nigerians better off today because of democratic rule? Since the return to democratic rule, Nigeria has continued to hold regular elections, a checkered restoration of civil liberties, and a modestly free media. However, human rights violations, arbitrary arrests, and detentions are still rampant. Insecurity is at an all-time high, with banditry, kidnapping, and attacks on government facilities almost a daily occurrence. Many Nigerians are today locked in heated debates around the 1999 Constitution. Some advocate for a new People's Constitution, arrived at through national dialogue and a referendum. Other groups are calling for secession because they feel the country is not working in their interest. At the heart of the debates are the benefits accruable from democracy and evenly distributed across the federating units. Issues of devolution of power, fiscal federalism, and resource control are subject matters. Right? These are all the issues that we will be engaging with as Nigeria marks 22 years of unbroken democratic rule. When we return from the break, we shall be meeting with our guest analysts, one of whom is with us in the studio here, and the others will be joining us virtually. Stay with us. All right, let's get to meet our guests who have joined us now. Right here in the studio is Faith Nwadishi. Faith is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, viewers.
Also joining us virtually via Zoom, hopefully Professor Kama Bello is a university teacher. He teaches management sciences. He'll be joining us. We'll also be joined by Alhaji Abdullahi Shinkafi. Alhaji Shinkafi is a politician and he is currently the Secretary of the Board of Trustees of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, and is joining us all the way from Zamfara State. Alhaji, thank you so much for joining us. Alaji can hear us. You need to unmute your microphone so that we can hear you clearly here. All right. Also joining us, but from Lagos, is a lawyer and a journalist, Mr. Osa Ekpe, director. We hope that he's able to join us in a short while. Okay, so let's begin, and of course, I hope that other guests will be joining us very shortly. Let's begin from here in the studio, where we have the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, Madam Faith Nwadishi. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
22 years of democracy. How would you describe it?
I would say 22 years of democracy, it's a good one for Nigeria because this is the longest we have ever had since independence. But in my own personal assessment, I think 22 years can be broken down into 14 years of civil military rule and 8 years of purely civilian rule. And why did I say that? First 8 years, we had President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was a retired military general. He was president. He was president as a military general, and he became president as a civilian. So he served 8 years. Now we have also a president who was a military general who has served 6 years. So if you put that 8 years and the 6 years together, we have 14 years. So I say 14 years of civil military rule and 8 years of civilian rule, because we had 2 years of Yar'Adua's presidency and 6 years of Goodluck Jonathan's presidency. Now, what we have seen is that the kind of excitement we all had in 1999, looking forward to a Nigeria that will work for everybody. We are not delivering on all of those milestones that we have set for ourselves. We see a Nigeria that is more divided now than we were in 1999 when we started this democracy. We see a lot of issues being put on the table that we thought we had gone past. For instance, resource control, power devolution, the real definition of a true federalism. People are beginning to ask that. And for the past 22 years, we have been on the constitutional matter. It's like every National Assembly, every republic you have, we want to talk about the constitution. It means that the conversations are getting deeper. People are becoming more interested in what is happening. Unlike in 1999, a lot of people were skeptical. We were not sure. I personally, I was skeptical. We're not sure the experiment was going to work. So a lot of people who came into power in 1999 were people who were really not interested in power. You saw people, politicians going around and say, are you interested? This position is there. And then you got people into power in 1999 that were not ready to serve the country. They were just available at that time. And then they got into power and they had to stay put. So you had people who were not prepared, who were not, so to say, ready for the kind of transformation we need to put Nigeria as the giant of Africa that it was described before even 1999. So we see us, rather than making progress, we see us going like 22 steps backwards for me. Because I sat down the last 1 week and have been trying to make an assessment on all of that. When you look at even political participation, from this inception we had more women. Now we have less women even at National Assembly. Even when it comes to issues of appointment, we had a woman who was elected a speaker in Edo State House of Assembly, and they said because she was a woman, she had to step down, and then you got another person to be a speaker. So it means that we have really not matured, you know, in our democratic experience. But it's just 22 years. I'm still very optimistic that we get the right things done, but we need a leadership that believes in the country Nigeria itself, the ideals that we have as Nigerian and as African country, a country that is relevant to all the economics of the world, including Africa, so that we can put our right step forward and make our country the great nation that should be.
You just said that, like many other people will say, it's just 22 years.
Yeah.
Some people will think that, 22 years is a short time in the life of a nation, but it's also a very long time. I mean, a child who was born 22 years ago is now a full-fledged adult.
Exactly.
He or she is able to vote and be voted for, as the case may be. And many think that, well, in the last 22 years, we could have made a lot more progress than we have made in those 22 years.
Right. I agree to an extent. The reason why I say that 22 years we're still having is like we're still experimenting is the fact that we're still not fully broken away from the shackles of the military rule that we had in Nigeria, where Nigeria was ruled by decrees. You know, somebody wakes up and there's a decree and you have to abide by that. Now, we have 22 years of democratic rule, but out of 22 years, we've had 14 years out of those 22 years still ruled by the same people who ruled us in the military era. So it's going to be difficult for you to.
But with the constitution this time, and not with decrees.
Yes, exactly. But with the constitution, but exactly when you now see that there are even some decrees. For instance, Decree 2, Land Use Act, is still in our constitution. Even though we have a constitution, how did we even get this constitution? The constitution, even though it says we the people of Nigeria, how many of the people of Nigeria sat down to give ourselves this constitution? If in 1999, when we came into a democracy, we actually sat down to debate our constitution and adopt that this is our constitution, then we can begin to have a conversation. That's the reason why for every republic that comes in, we always have this conversation around the constitution. And the National Assembly keeps saying that Section 9 of the Constitution gives them the power to amend the constitution. I was at the National Assembly public hearing for the Senate last week Friday at the ICC Center, where the Deputy Senate President engaged the senior advocates of Nigeria on the issues. And the National Assembly find they have the powers, the Constitution has given the powers to amend the Constitution, but also there is that power for them to listen to the people and then bring forth a law that they can pass, get a referendum, get the people to say, this is our Constitution, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to go about that. There are so many provisions. For instance, the Constitution, we have a chapter 2 of Constitution that you cannot even go to court and debate, but it's there in the Constitution. These are things that we need to sit down as citizens to begin to debate and say, can this work for us? Some of the presentations we made, for instance, were saying, do away with chapter 2 of the Constitution, merge it with chapter 4, so that it becomes justiciable. People will have a role, a say to say, I belong to this country, I was part of making that, I was part of making those laws, and then you begin to have more patriotic Nigerians. You have people who want to really lay their lives down for this country to move forward. For instance, look at the issue around devolution of powers. Devolution of powers, we say we are a federation. But at the same time, we have 3 tiers of government: the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And you can't see where the divide is. State governors still come cap in hands to the federal government to take money on monthly basis. So you see commissioners of finance from state government. So where is the devolution? Where is it? You sit down somewhere in your state, you want to make a law for your state, and the federal government sits down and say, no, you don't have such powers. That's at the federal level. Then go to the local government level. You have a local government. There is not one single state in Nigeria, out of the 36 states in Nigeria, where you will have a local government election and people who are from the other party win seats. If it's a particular political party and there are 36 local governments in that state, 36 seats will belong to that. And you know, it's so funny that elections are done on a Saturday, and on Sunday you are already swearing, on Monday you are already swearing people in. So we say we are a federation, but we don't run a true federalism. We look at the money, we put the money in one purse, and the greater share of that goes to the federal government. And so at the end of the day, the federal government still has that power over the states and at the local government areas. All
right, let's cross over to Zamfara State, where Alhaji Abdullahi Shinkafi is with us. Alhaji Shinkafi, what would be your take? What would be your assessment of the 22 years of Nigeria's democratic journey?
Well, if you look at the return of democracy in the past 22 years, there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly situation we have found ourselves within that 22 years of democracy in Nigeria. A lot of progress has been made, and if you look at from 1960 to 2021, we have military intervention within from 1960 to 1999. That's a military intervention in politics. But from 1999 to 2021, we have uninterrupted civilian rule in Nigeria. So if you look at the situation, the constitution which was handed over to us as a Nigerian is a military constitution. And that military needs a total overhaul because there are a lot of lacuna on that constitution. And if you look at the issue of appointment, issue of what is happening now, on issue of insecurity, nobody is safe in Nigeria. If you look at what is happening in the Northeast, there is Boko Haram and insurgency. If you look at the Northwest, there is issue of armed banditry, cattle rustling, kidnapping. Not to Central, and also the armed banditry, kidnapping, and what have you. And if you look at the Southeast, the issue of IPOP now, South issue of IPOP, cultism, kidnapping, and even part of Southwest, IPOP, and this issue of succession. So if you look at it from 1999 to date, we have found ourselves in a good and bad situation. During the Jonathan period and Umar Musa Adua, the issue of this militancy, part vandalism, militancy, and the rest. But still, the military rule has come to be a history, and democracy has come to stay. So with this thing, I think it's a good development in Nigeria, because no any Nigeria will wake up and hear say the military have taken over. We are taking up democracy. So what we are saying in the constitution that need for a total overhaul of the system. What my other speakers said, issue of devolution of power, issue of independence of judiciary and the legislature need to be looked at it. And there are a lot of this issue of joint account where the state government are taking the money of local government, and that's why you know that there's need for total overhaul of the constitution, because these local government funds are not going directly to the local government. And if you go to the grassroots, there's not any meaningful development there. So that is need for total overhaul of the constitution. And on the issue of a local government election, you see the ruling party take the victory at the end of the election. And there's need for abolishment of the conduct of election by the independent electoral commission. And then the issue of this military, if you look at what's happening now, military are all over. But on the issue of insecurity has been rising day and day at the galloping rate. Since the inception of the Umar Musa Adua and the Boko Haram come on board, for the first 10 to 12 years, there was not any meaningful achievement which was achieved on the fight against Boko Haram. And you see what is happening. And we have government in place. And the local government, state government in place. All there is no synergy within this agency of government. If you look at the security agency, they don't work hand in hand in terms of how they can control the security situation in the country. So that is why I tell you that there's good and bad, ugly situation. And we are also, some governors who are able to achieve a milestone in terms of developmental projects in their various states. Even the federal government, there is a lot of achievement with the federal government recorded, but the president needs to tighten his belt very well and see how he can address the issue of insecurity, an issue of poverty alleviation, and it's also an issue of what do you call poverty alleviation and education. If you look at what is happening in the education sector for the first 22 years, the education sector is backward. It's backward. Some of the state government cannot even pay NECO and white, even common interest. So this is a situation where we found ourselves. If we look at the bureau of the military rule, they only decide on decree. But we have a constitution in place. But if you look at for the past 22 years, some of the appointments are lopsided. There's a lot of nepotism. Nepotism in governance and lopsided appointments. You understand? So things have to be changed, and that need to improve on the issue of the electoral system. The Electoral Act 2010, as amended, is there in place for the past 11 years. It's long overdue to be amended. And people have been waiting for a new electoral system in Nigeria. So there's even the issue of this, the issue of National Compact. 2014 National Conference had a very good recommendation that there is no need even for the National Assembly spending taxpayers' money, going around and campaigning for this public hearing for memorandum for constitutional amendment. There's a lot of good recommendations. What I'm advising the government should go back to the archives and took the record of the foot of the 2014 National Conference, which was convened by the administration of Goodwill Ben Jonathan. And that National Conference has a very good recommendation that will give this country a hope and a brighter future. Because there's many recommendations that need to do with the state police, the abolishment of JAC account, abolishment of state independent electoral commission, and demolition of power. And then so part of the resource control and rehabilitation and reintegration of Northeast state which was affected by insurgency. So it is something that we have to look at it. You cannot throw away a bathwater with a baby. So this is my opinion.
Okay.
Because that 492 delegates in that national conference comprise of very meaningful Nigerians. The military, former military governors, former senators, former governors, former jurists, and some politicians and civil society organizations. Which part of even some of the delegates are also part of this government. The chief of staff to Mr. President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, is also a member of the National Conference in 2014. Former Minister of Defense, Masura Ali, is also a delegate to the National Conference. Minister of the JAM, and a lot of them I can even mention, go ahead to mention, who are also members of National Combat. They are in good position to advise the government to bring that report and see what they can do to give a hope for Nigeria. There's a lot of agitation for creation of additional states, which is part of the report. So that is it.
All right.
So,
Alhaji Shinkafi, just stay with us. You have thrown up a number of issues there, which I want our other panelists to also respond to. Let's cross over to Lagos, where Osa Ekpen, director, is joining us. He's a lawyer and a journalist. When Nigeria returned to democracy in 1999, there was a promise that democracy was going to bring prosperity to larger majority of Nigerians. If you look back now, in the last 22 years, has that happened? Has democracy delivered on the promise of better living, prosperity for the people of Nigeria, at least for the larger number of Nigerians?
Well, thank you, Mark, for having me. For those of us who were involved in the struggle for democracy,
Osa, you need to put down the audio of your TV set so that it doesn't howl back at us here, so we can hear you clearly. I understand there are some challenges with the networks today, but of course, we can hear you. If you are still there, please go ahead.
That you want to look at the...
Let's see if we can get some better connection with you, Osa. Meanwhile, let me get back to the studio here to Madam Faith. I'll ask the same question. In 1999, when Nigeria returned to democratic rule, the expectation was that democracy was like a magic wand. It was a silver bullet. It was going to deliver on all the good things of life to Nigerians. Now, 22 years down the line, that appears not to have exactly happened. What do you think has changed?
Exactly, because 22 years ago, Nigeria could actually take its place in the Committee of Nations economically. Our naira was strong, our economy was very strong. We had a petroleum sector which we still have, that is running the economy of the country. And unfortunately, it has taken us 20 years out of 22 years to bring about a reform in the petroleum sector, and we have still not been able to do that. For 20 years, we've been talking about the PIB, and up till now, 20 years after, we don't still have a PIB to look at the sector that would have brought about the promises that 1999 had for Nigerians. Now, if you look at that, just oppose it with what our naira is standing now, right now, with the dollar. You know, our naira is very weak, one of the weakest around in the region. As at yesterday, naira was going for over about 500 naira. Where in 1999 we had just a little above 100 naira to the dollar. So now, and then as at that time, the poverty rate in Nigeria was, you had the number of people who were living below $1. Now you have people, one, who don't even have access to their livelihoods because of insurgency and insecurity. People are afraid to go to their homes. Very soon we're going to have food security problems. People can't even give themselves 3 square meals. Democracy promised 3 square meals. Democracy promised security. Democracy promised prosperity. But out of all of this, we are not getting any of them. Rather, people are sleeping on empty stomachs. Children can't go to school anymore. So the last speaker just now talked about our educational standard, that it's falling. Not only that it's falling, but you can't even leave children in school, especially girls in school. You no longer can leave them in school because you are not sure of their security being there. So most of the indices that you need for development, that you want to look at the health sector, you want to look at education, you want to look at livelihoods and all of that, they're all really at the lowest level. In the international indexes that we have seen, Nigeria is no longer meeting up. We see Nigeria at the lowest rung of it. Is either we have, when it comes to open governance, Nigeria is not found there among the top nations. When it comes to open budget systems, when it comes to issues around corruption, rather we have all the records showing in the negative for us. So when in 1999, the early days of democracy, we had this, expectation that things were going to happen. We had laws. That was when the ICPC came, because government was saying, okay, one of the problems we have is that we're going to fight corruption, and then we need to put institutions in place, because we kept talking about strong institutions. I was also part of the pro-democracy groups that fought from the June 12th. I was lucky to have escaped with my life. Then I was in Lagos as a youth copper, then in Lagos, you understand? And so only for you to wake up every day and 22 years down the line, you are not making any progress on education, you are not making any progress on health, even agriculture, that we are thinking will be the alternative source of income for the country, is now dwindling. Because take, for instance, Benue State. Benue State used to be called the food basket of the nation. We expected that Benue State will supply and sustain the country. Now, you don't have people in their farms, because you now have more people in Benue in IDP camps. They no longer can access their farm. Just when I was coming to the studio, I had a young lady with me who told me that from home, the mother called her and said they can't even go to the farms anymore, except they go in groups. And even when they go in groups, they're in a hurry to get back home. And at night, they make sure that they don't sleep in their communities. They want to go. And that is Benue State, the food basket of the nation. So the indices are not working out for us. Democracy doesn't seem to be working out for us. But that is where the power of the people come in. The people need to find their mainstay in the democratic circle and the system. It is the power of the people that sustains the democracy. Africa, for instance, have always grown around issues. You have the monarchy system. The king decides for everybody. So, and that's where we find ourselves. We are trying to practice a democracy in an African context that believes that the leader decides for everybody. So you have a democracy where people are saying, in democracy people talk. But you have leaders who still feel and wear that monarchical kind of crown and feel that because now we are leaders, before election, they are followers. They want you people to be the ones to lead them. But after elections, as soon as they get into power, they become the rulers. Not even leaders anymore. They become the rulers who must tell you where to step your feet and where not to step your feet. So it's funny, unless Nigerians need to know that the power of democracy is centered around the people's ability to demand for accountability. Until we're able to begin to demand for accountability and hold those that we have so-called elected into position to account, that is when we can begin to truly practice a democracy. And that's why I keep saying, and you know, it's fun when I say we have a civil military kind of system, and my friends are saying, what do you mean? Where did you come up with this concept? Because during the military era, we just said it, that people wake up and you have a decree. It is true we have a constitution, but are we really going by the rules and regulations of our constitutions? We have one of the best systems when it comes to policies and laws in the country, but do we ever implement them? We never implement them.
Let's get back to Sir and ask that question. Sir, if you are still with us there, let's ask you that question. If democracy has not delivered the dividends that it promised in 1999, is it a question of the document called the Constitution that came with it, or is it the fault of the operators of that document, or it is both?
Well, are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for having me. I would say that, the system does not appreciate absolutism. Things are not absolute. So I would say that it is a combination of both a faulty constitution and the practitioners. One, the constitution lied to itself. The first statement there that we the people, it is not we the people that produced the 1999 constitution. It's a product of a military fiat, and we are now told that we the people. It wasn't we, actually. And we have seen that since 1999, there have been a robust call for a review of the constitution, to the extent now, after about 2 or 3 amendments, people are of the opinion, a lot of political scientists and scholars and even practicing politicians believe that if we want to have a wholesale development or a conceptual development that is anchored on a sustainable basis, there should be the need to even dump the 1999 constitution and let the people actually, either through a referendum or through a national conference, decide on the kind of constitution we want to use to practice democracy in Nigeria. I agree with the previous speaker that yes, maybe she called it civil military relationship. I just call it civilian rule. We are not yet democratic because, we all know the ingredients of democracy, still not very present after 22 years. It also has to do with the followers and the practitioners of the democracy. You'll find out that because of perhaps several years of being under the suzerainty of the military, it has been ingrained into our mentality and mental focus to do things in a way of structure, obey and command. And that is why you can even discover that even since democracy, the so-called democracy of civilian rule came about in 1999, only 2% have been able to do 2 terms successfully. At least we just hope that Buhari will also continue his term. And the first one was a retired military head of state, Olusegun Obasanjo, who did 8 years. Unfortunately, one of the best presidents we ever had in the president system, which is the late Umar Musa Yar'Adua, may God bless his soul, had health challenges and left the scene about after 3 years. Goodluck Jonathan could not survive a re-election. And Buhari, now a military man, is going into his 3rd year now. 2 years plus in his 2nd term. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there is even a conspiracy among Nigerian political elites to always deflect or defer rather to people with a military background. And that in itself has a tremendous influence in the way and manner the politicians practice democracy. Because like Faith was saying, you know, they believe that they should just hand instruction to you and you obey without questioning. So I would say that, sincerely speaking, both the Constitution and the people have failed in ensuring that we have the dividends of democracy. When I say the people, it doesn't have to do with those so-called rulers, the politicians alone. It doesn't have to do with the followers. Even with the followers, are we vigilant in the protection of the tenets of democracy and the rule of law? Are we consistent in our criticism of the practitioners or those we elected into office? For instance, you discover that when we were practicing journalists, there was a consensus among those who had the courage to say, yes, it is time for the military to leave the scene. And we all stood out there consistently and constantly, became a pain in their neck until they left the scene. But now you have what you call partisan media practice. You have journalists who are PDP, you have journalists who are APC, you have journalists who are SDP, you have journalists who don't even believe in anything, you know. So to that extent, you see people, social media practitioners, allowing their professional disposition to be colored by political sentiments. And the same way you have generally the masses of Nigerians, you know, who believe that when a leader or a politician who is in power as a governor or president is a member of my political party, I don't have to criticize him. That is why we now have the popular lingo or slang. It's a family affair. During the time of PDP, it was always a family affair. And now APC, the former garrulous national chairman of APC, Adams of Shomole, told the whole world that once you join APC, your sins are forgiven. You know, and that is why we have a clock in the way and manner the fight against corruption is being pursued. So, by and large, I would say that we the people, we have disappointed ourselves. When I say we the people, I mean both the practitioners, those who are in position of leadership, and even the ordinary citizens. And then the Constitution is totally faulty.
All right, Osa. Let me pose this question to Alhaji Shinkafi in Zamfara State. Now, there's this debate about whether or not in the last 22 years of the practice of democracy, we have succeeded, whether or not we have succeeded in building what one would call some measure of democratic ethos and culture. Do you think that there are things that are there that are enduring, that there are values, there are some democratic ethos that we can impart to younger generation that were built over the last 22 years?
If you look at for the first 22 years, there's nothing worthy of celebration, and in the last 22 years, if you look at the economic situation, it's very poor. Hello? If you look at the economic situation, it's very far. The Nigerian currency has been seriously devaluated, and the economy is in serious crisis. On the issue of agriculture, the fertilizer is no more there to give to the farmer at a subsidized rate, and the harvest is very poor. Like in Zamfara State now, where I come from, almost most of the farmland in the 5 areas are under siege of armed bandits. But with the insertion of the present administration of Governor Bello, the security has been restored at least 50%, or if not 70%. So the economy, I think with what is happening now, there is nothing to be proud of in a democratic government, because the government at the center is always be talking of but on record.
You appear to be having some challenges with the network there, but Faith, let me come back to you and ask you this same question. In the last 22 years, do you think that the system has been able to establish or put in place what one would regard as democratic values, enduring democratic values?
Well, for me, the first thing that comes to mind, you said that our National Assembly, at least the legislature, is in place, as in physically in place, but not delivering on the mandates that the legislative parliament is supposed to deliver on. The parliament, the presence of parliament in any democratic system ensures the sustainability of that. That's the difference between the military system and the democratic system. So, but you expect that you have a parliament that reflects the views of the people. You have a parliament that is like a feedback system from what the members of their constituencies are saying into that parliament. But the parliament has constituted themselves into another arm of government that operates as if it is an executive arm. Let me give you a very typical example. Somebody can be in parliament for 2 years, 8 years, and has never represented his members of his or her constituency on the floor of the parliament concerning their needs. But that same person will be there and be called a ranking member of parliament and has never brought a bill or a resolution to the House of the floor. So if you ask me, the structure of parliament is there. Those are some of the democratic things that you want to see. Another thing is the ability of people also to speak, even though when you speak, you may not be heard. You may not be heard, but at least you are speaking and you are not getting gagged. People are getting gagged, but the level we want to see it in a democracy is not the level we are seeing in a democracy. It's better than what we had in the military era. People are still watching over their backs to see what is happening. We have just seen the recent crackdown on social media.
Work in progress.
It is work in progress, but I think that some of those democratic institutions that we have in place, for instance, Parliament, for me, the first place to go to is members of Parliament to really understand what their mandate is. Their mandate is to defend the desires of their people because they're the representatives of the people. So if as a parliamentarian you are standing on the floor of Parliament and you are not reflecting back on what your people have told you to do, some members of Parliament have not even been able, cannot even go back to their constituencies, and you will never see them on the floor of Parliament saying, my people are displaced, my people don't have a home, my people don't have food. But it is just about that. The member of Parliament sits in Parliament, receives the allowances of Parliament, but never discharges the duty of a Parliament. And that is why I keep saying that people must hold all of these people accountable. What are those members of those constituencies doing? How can you see your parliamentarian who can't even come back home because of insurgency or one thing or the other is always around in Abuja, never defending the people, and you say that you are a member of Parliament? That is something we have to look at. We have the structure, but we don't have the ability to deliver on that mandate for the sustainability of our democratic processes.
Thank you so much. I do apologize for the little challenges we have with the network, especially with Alhaji Shinkafi, who joined us from Zamfara State. We hope that when we return next time, we'll have better network. Where, like we heard, it's work in progress. It's part of our democratic build-up that our communication systems will also begin to get better as the years go by. So let's thank all of you. Faith Nwadishi, who is Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, who joined us here in the studio. And Alhaji Abdullahi Shinkafi is a politician and Secretary of the Board of Trustees of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, ABGA, and of course, USA, a pen director, a lawyer, and a journalist who joined us from Lagos. Thank you so much for your time. Right? And for you, our viewers, we want to thank you for investing your time with us. Well, it's an abridged version, as it were, since some of our time was taken up by the live transmission from Port Harcourt. We'll see you again. Do you have yourself a wonderful democracy day. Bye for now.